A rehearsal for the red heifer ceremony has just taken place in Israel.
Recent developments in Israel, particularly the rehearsal of the red heifer ceremony and ongoing preparations for the construction of the Third Temple, have ignited global fascination and intense debate. These events are not merely religious rituals, but carry profound cultural, political, and eschatological significance resonating with Jewish messianic expectations, Christian apocalyptic prophecies, and even the cryptic predictions of Nostradamus. The red heifer ceremony, a purification rite rooted in biblical tradition, and the movement to rebuild the Third Temple on the Temple Mount are seen by some as harbingers of divine redemption, while others interpret them as ominous signs of the rise of the Antichrist. This article provides an exhaustive exploration of these developments, weaving together historical context, current events, prophetic interpretations, and the potential role of figures like Donald Trump, while also examining Nostradamus' quatrains and their relevance to the unfolding narrative. Historical context of the Jewish temple. The First and Second Temples. The Jewish temple in Jerusalem has long been a cornerstone of Jewish faith, symbolizing the divine presence and serving as the epicenter of worship and sacrifice. The first temple, constructed by King Solomon around 957 BCE, was a magnificent structure built to house the Ark of the Covenant and facilitate the sacrificial system outlined in the Torah. It stood for nearly 4 centuries until its destruction by the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar II in 587 BCE, marking a devastating moment in Jewish history that led to the Babylonian exile. The Second Temple, built in 516 BCE after the return from exile, was initially a modest structure but was later expanded by Herod the Great into a grand edifice. Despite its splendor, it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE during the First Jewish-Roman War, leaving the Jewish people without a central place of worship. The Western Wall, a remnant of the Second Temple's retaining wall, remains a sacred site for Jews today. Since the destruction of the Second Temple, the hope for a Third Temple has been a central tenet of Jewish eschatology, tied to the anticipated arrival of the Messiah and the restoration of Israel's spiritual and national prominence. The Temple Mount, where both temples once stood, is now home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, sacred Islamic sites. This overlap makes the Temple Mount one of the most contested religious sites in the world, with any move to rebuild the temple fraught with geopolitical implications. Despite these challenges, Jewish groups, notably the Temple Institute, have been meticulously preparing for the Third Temple, driven by a belief that its reconstruction is imminent and divinely ordained. The red heifer ceremony, the red heifer para aduma ceremony described in Numbers 19:122, is a pivotal ritual in Jewish law, essential for purifying individuals and objects before they can participate in temple worship. The ceremony requires a red heifer that is completely red, without blemish, and never yoked. The heifer is sacrificed burned, and its ashes are mixed with water to create a purifying agent. Historically, only 9 red heifers have been sacrificed, with the last recorded during the Second Temple period. The rarity of a qualifying heifer has made the ceremony a focal point of messianic anticipation, as its performance is seen as a prerequisite for rebuilding the temple. In recent years, the Temple Institute, based in Jerusalem, has been working to revive this ritual. They have imported red heifers from Texas, raising them in Shiloh, Israel, under strict conditions to ensure compliance with biblical standards. In early 2025, a rehearsal of the red heifer ceremony took place, drawing significant attention. While some heifers reportedly meet the criteria, others have been disqualified due to minor imperfections, such as a single non-red hair. A widely circulated video from Israel News Nation showed a red heifer being burned in a practice ritual, though experts noted that the method did not adhere to traditional requirements, indicating it was a preparatory exercise rather than the final ceremony. The red heifer rehearsal. In early 2025, the Temple Institute conducted a rehearsal of the red heifer ceremony in Shiloh, marking a significant milestone in their efforts to revive temple practices. The event, documented in a 5-second video clip by Israel News Nation, showed a red heifer being burned, signaling Israel's commitment to advancing the purification process. While the heifer used in the rehearsal did not meet the stringent biblical standards due to deviations in the burning method, the event was a public declaration of intent, demonstrating that the infrastructure and expertise for the ceremony are in place. The Temple Institute's efforts to breed qualifying red heifers have been ongoing for years. The heifers are meticulously monitored, as even a single non-red hair or physical blemish can disqualify them. The rehearsal, while not the final ritual, underscores the progress made in preparing for the Third Temple. It has also fueled speculation among religious communities, with some seeing it as a sign of the imminent arrival of the Messiah, while others warn of its connection to apocalyptic prophecies. Beyond the red heifer ceremony, other developments suggest that preparations for the Third Temple are accelerating. In Jerusalem, reports have surfaced of infrastructure projects potentially linked to the temple's reconstruction. A video shared by a Jerusalem resident in 2025 claimed that a chairlift is being constructed to transport worshippers to the Temple Mount, a project dubbed the Hotel Elevator. The same video highlighted road signs directing to Harvat Hashem, the House of God, and allegedly pointing toward the future site of the Third Temple. While these claims remain unverified, they reflect a growing public discourse about the temple's rebuilding and its integration into Jerusalem's urban landscape. Additionally, the rediscovery of ancient quarries used for the First and Second Temples has provided a potential source of stones for the Third Temple. Videos have emerged showing Jewish craftsmen preparing these stones, with some designated as cornerstones for the anticipated structure. These efforts align with the daily prayers of many Jews who recite 3 times a day. May it be your will that the temple be speedily rebuilt in our days. The combination of physical preparations and public rhetoric suggests a concerted effort to make the Third Temple a reality. Policy shifts on the Temple Mount. A significant policy change in 2025 has further intensified speculation about the Third Temple. Historically, Jews were prohibited from praying or singing on the Temple Mount to avoid escalating tensions with Muslim authorities who administer the site under a status quo agreement. Violators face detention or permanent bans. However, recent reports indicate that Jewish worshippers are now permitted to pray and sing openly on the Temple Mount, a shift that has sparked both celebration and controversy. This change is seen by some as a step toward greater Jewish control over the site, potentially paving the way for the temple's reconstruction. For others, it raises concerns about increased tensions with the Muslim community and the potential for violence. In Jewish tradition, the rebuilding of the Third Temple is intimately tied to the arrival of the Messiah, who will usher in an era of peace, divine presence, and global unity. A Talmudic prophecy from Sanhedrin 97a states that the Messiah will not come until the peruta ceases from the purse, referring to the disappearance of the smallest coin. Some Jewish scholars, such as Rabbi Spiro, have pointed to the United States' decision to stop minting pennies in 2026 as a fulfillment of this prophecy. The cessation of penny production, driven by rising costs and the shift to a digital economy, is seen as a sign of economic instability and societal breakdown, aligning with Talmudic descriptions of a pre-Messianic era marked by hyperinflation, scarcity, and moral decline. The Talmudic prophecy also describes a time when food remains unaffordable despite abundance, a scenario that resonates with modern economic trends. Rabbi Spiro and others argue that these signs suggest the world is nearing the Messianic age. However, critics caution that the prophecy's application to the penny's discontinuation may be speculative, as the peruta was a specific coin in ancient Jewish society, not necessarily analogous to modern currencies. Nevertheless, the alignment of economic shifts with ancient texts has fueled messianic fervor among some Jewish communities. Christian perspectives, the Antichrist in biblical prophecy. In Christian eschatology, the rebuilding of the Third Temple and the red heifer ceremony are often associated with the rise of the Antichrist, a figure prophesied to deceive the world during the end times. According to Revelation chapter 6, 5-6, the black horse of the apocalypse symbolizes a time of severe economic hardship, where a loaf of bread costs a day's wages. Revelation 13, 16-17 further describes the Antichrist's control over buying and selling, potentially through a centralized financial system or mark. Some Christian theologians argue that the Talmudic prophecy about the peruta, while interpreted by Jews as a messianic sign, aligns more closely with these biblical warnings about the Antichrist. The construction of the Third Temple is seen as a prerequisite for the Antichrist's actions, as 2 Thessalonians 2:4 describes him desecrating the temple by declaring himself God. The relaxation of prayer restrictions on the Temple Mount and the red heifer rehearsal are viewed by some Christians as steps toward this scenario, with the temple's rebuilding setting the stage for the Antichrist's rise. The convergence of economic trends, such as the cessation of penny production with biblical descriptions of famine and control, further reinforces this interpretation. Nostradamus and the Third Temple. The 16th century French seer Nostradamus, known for his cryptic quatrains in Les prophecies, has been frequently cited in discussions of end times events. While his predictions are notoriously ambiguous, several quatrains have been linked to the Middle East and the rebuilding of a significant religious structure, potentially the Third Temple. Quatrain 899 reads, "Through the power of three temporal kings, the sacred seat will be put in another place, where the substance of the body and the spirit will be restored and received as the true seat." Interpreters suggest that this quatrain may refer to the relocation or reconstruction of a sacred site, possibly the Temple Mount, under the influence of three powerful leaders. Some speculate that Donald Trump, due to his pro-Israel policies, could be one of these figures alongside other global leaders. Another quatrain, 228, states, "The great seventh number will soon be accomplished. It will appear at the time of the games of slaughter, not far from the great millennial age when the buried will go out from their tombs." This has been interpreted as a reference to a significant event around the year 2000, or later potentially linked to the revival of ancient practices like the red heifer ceremony or the Third Temple's reconstruction. The phrase games of slaughter could allude to the geopolitical conflicts surrounding the Temple Mount, while the buried might symbolize the resurrection of ancient traditions. While Nostradamus' quatrains lack specificity, their evocative imagery fuels speculation about their relevance to current events in Israel. Donald Trump's presidency 2017-2021 and 2025 present has been marked by unprecedented support for Israel, including the recognition of Jerusalem as its capital in 2017 and the relocation of the U.S. Embassy in 2018. These actions have endeared him to many in the Jewish community, particularly those who view him as a modern-day King Cyrus, the Persian ruler, who facilitated the Second Temple's rebuilding. Ezra Barwin 1-4. In 2018, two senior Orthodox rabbis reportedly met with Trump and Jared Kushner, urging him to support the Third Temple's construction as part of his divinely appointed role. According to prophecy researcher Tom Horn, the rabbis emphasized Trump's improbable 2016 election victory as a sign of divine favor, positioning him to advance Israel's spiritual and political goals. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's close relationship with Trump, including his nomination of Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2021, further underscores this dynamic. In Netanyahu's White House visit amid efforts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas highlighted Trump's ongoing influence in Middle Eastern geopolitics. Some prophecy watchers believe that Trump's policies are aligning with biblical predictions about a figure who facilitates the temple's rebuilding, though opinions differ on whether this role is benevolent or tied to apocalyptic events. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, issued by the British government and supported by the Rothschild family, promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. At the time, over 90% of Palestine's population was Arab, and the declaration's promise not to harm their rights was never fully realized, setting the stage for decades of conflict. Critics argue that the declaration was a strategic move to secure British influence in the Middle East, while managing Jewish immigration with the Rothschilds, allegedly funding both sides of the ensuing conflict to maintain global unrest. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, rooted in the Balfour Declaration, continues to shape the Temple Mount's status. The relaxation of prayer restrictions and the Third Temple movement risk exacerbating tensions, potentially fulfilling prophecies about nations gathering against Jerusalem. Zechariah 12:3. Trump's pro-Israel policies, while celebrated by some, have also been criticized for sidelining Palestinian concerns, further complicating the path to peace. The convergence of Jewish, Christian, and Nostradamus-related prophecies creates a complex narrative. For Jews, the Third Temple and red heifer ceremony signal redemption and the Messiah's arrival. For Christians, they are harbingers of tribulation and the Antichrist's rise. Nostradamus's quatrains, while speculative, add a layer of intrigue, suggesting that global leaders and events may be orchestrating a pivotal moment in history. The cessation of penny production, interpreted as a fulfillment of the Talmudic Peruta prophecy, highlights the interplay between economic trends and religious expectations, with differing interpretations fueling debate. The Third Temple movement is a geopolitical lightning rod, given the Temple Mount's significance to Jews, Muslims, and Christians. The relaxation of prayer restrictions and the red heifer rehearsal signal a shift in Israel's approach, potentially emboldening temple advocates while alarming Muslim authorities and Palestinian communities. The involvement of figures like Trump underscores the intersection of politics and prophecy, with his policies potentially accelerating the conditions for conflict or cooperation. For Christians, the Bible offers a clear message: salvation comes through faith in Jesus Christ, not through earthly temples or prophecies. Romans 10:9-13 emphasizes that confessing Jesus as Lord and believing in his resurrection ensures salvation transcending ethnic or religious distinctions. As the world watches these developments, spiritual discernment and faith remain paramount, guiding believers through a time of uncertainty and anticipation. The rehearsal of the red heifer ceremony, the preparations for the Third Temple, and the geopolitical shifts in Israel are unfolding against a backdrop of ancient prophecies and modern realities. Whether viewed through Jewish hopes, Christian warnings, or Nostradamus's cryptic visions, these events demand careful consideration. The role of figures like Donald Trump, the alignment of economic trends with Talmudic predictions, and the escalating tensions around the Temple Mount create a complex narrative. As history and prophecy converge, the world stands at a crossroads where faith, politics, and destiny intersect, urging reflection and discernment in an era of profound change.